Welcome back to another episode of The Bad, the Ugly, the Good and Healing You. I am your host, Dr. Jenita Griffin, also known as Doc G. Before we get started with today's episode, I just wanted to thank all of you for the love you shared and the good feedback you've given for the first episode. I am so grateful to all of you for your support. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So, on today's episode, we'll be talking about a topic that most of us carry around and seldom discuss openly about. It's a topic that we often struggle with emotionally, and that is dealing with disappointment. Um, I know, a lot of us have dealt with disappointment in our past, our present, and unfortunately, it's something that we may deal with for the rest of our lives. So it's not really about avoiding disappointment or being able to get rid of disappointment because that is just not realistic. It's more about, and I hate to say this, you guys, but it's more about learning how to let go, accept, and protect your peace in a world of disappointment. It's learning to protect your peace in a world of disappointment. So I know most of us deal with disappointment, and um, there are a lot of things that may disappoint us. Particularly for one, I could say with the economy, um, the wars and politics, all of that is very disappointing to me. Think you have family members that may disappoint you, your children, your friends, your job or your career path, um, not being promoted, thinking and doing hard work and you're not promoted. You thought you might have been promoted, or you thought you may have been further in your career path, but turns out you are not there. I say that to say that we all deal with disappointment. And most often from the outside world, we deal with it. There are many things that, may be outside of our control. But when it comes to becoming disappointed with yourself after making a choice or decision that that didn't go as planned, or um, you hoped for a better outcome, that hits deeper. I feel like we carry disappointment when it comes to ourselves deeper. And it can appear, it comes up as like self blame or even guilt. I'm not going to tell you how many people come to me and speak of what I call inappropriate guilt, feeling guilty for something that is not even warranted, meaning they had no hand in participating in, but because a family member may have done something, or a friend, or a child, or what have you, they carry that guilt because of the disappointment. Okay. Um, Also, thinking of relationships. Um, we can be disappointed in having to invest in a relationship that didn't work, given that you've been in a relationship and you invested in it for several years and it just didn't work out. You look back at it and you become disappointed in yourself because you stayed so long. Or even the dream that you felt that was so close but never became a reality for you. These are all disappointments, and most often we carry that, and we carry it so deep that it starts to look like grief. Um, it could look like failure, and we can carry it for a lifetime, you guys. We can carry it for a lifetime. So when people, I think, I think about how people expressed it. It could look like anger, it could look like shame or complaints that are not necessarily very healthy. But when you think about it, no one really teaches us what to do with disappointment when we experience these emotions. No one really teaches us. When we share with other people, most often, a lot of people say, get over it or move on or it just wasn't meant to be. Those are some things that other people say. And although I know a lot of people may have good intention and they, sometimes want to kind of help you snap out of it, sometimes, that is not productive. That those are statements that become counterproductive and may do a little more harm than good. So, what do we do with the hurt that stays behind? What do we do with that hurt and disappointment? Today, I want to share how to move through disappointment and grow to obtain your peace. Because I feel like disappointment doesn't always mean you failed. Sometimes it just means that God has pointed you into a new direction. But it's up to you to see the silver lining and it's up to you to accept it for what it is. Okay, so let's talk about the bad in disappointment. Looking at when I think of the bad, I think of the weight of disappointment. Disappointment happens when our expectations, when our expectations and our realities are not, they don't match. Disappointment happens when our reality and our expectations don't match. We picture things one way and life kind of just unfolded another way, differently. And it hurts, especially when it comes to others disappointing us, not because we're weak or not because we're weak, but because it mattered to us because it mattered to us. Disappointment can feel heavy. It can make you question your worth. It can make you question your judgment. It can drain your hope. It can confuse your faith. It can even, again, it can make you feel guilty. It can make you blame yourself for something that you really had nothing to do with. And another bad part is that we don't even we don't even say that we're disappointed. We mask it. We mask it. And so when I look at us masking disappointment, we may say things like, I'm fine, or it's okay, or my favorite one is, it is what it is. People may even say, I don't care, but actually, inside, you are experiencing pain, you're dissatisfied, you're experiencing sadness, frustration. These are things that we experience when it comes to being disappointed or let down. And we just kind of mask it. But I do want you to know that you are allowed to grieve the life that you thought you would have. Not forever, but long enough to honor your heart. And I feel like things become worse when you're repeatedly disappointed, especially when you're repeatedly disappointed by the same person all the time. You know, we start to get into a place where we start to experience what is called emotional erosion. And so, what I mean by that is it wears us down. In other words, it wears down our natural defenses, um, our empathy, our emotional resilience, our ability to experience positive emotions. It wears us down. And when I think about it, I look at it as when you kind of keep over giving to others and you start just doing, and you are sort of pouring into the relationship and not getting anything in return, you start resenting that person. You show love to them, you keep um, doing and investing and not getting the same love that you expect in return. This leads to emotional erosion. In other words, love without boundaries becomes self betrayal. If you're honoring your heart, you simply just stop explaining yourself into exhaustion or hoping that the next time things would be different without even having any evidence that the person has changed or trying to do better. So what does honoring the heart looks like? What does honoring your heart looks like? It looks like, and I said this before in episode 1, living in alignment with your inner truth. It looks like aligning yourself with God, showing yourself compassion, respecting who you are, understanding that what has happened happened, and ultimately knowing that the right thing left for you to do is to just let go, is just to let go. That's what honoring your heart is about. So, when I think further into disappointment and how we can adapt and listen to the negative things that are going on, because disappointment is very heavy. Um, when we try to bury it instead of acknowledging it, we become stuck. And it starts you start getting stuck to a point where you pretending that you're not hurt, but when you actually really are. It's worse when you um, it's worse when you carry it longer and you start to bury it to the point where you start to avoid. You see, we internalize moments of disappointment, um, more so that is not of our own doing. This is something that cuts deeper. And oftentimes, if we don't acknowledge it and we bury it, we start avoiding, stop trusting ourselves, we begin to self-sabotage, and it just keeps going, and before you know it, you find yourself in that dark place. And you guys know what I mean by that dark place. um that's the ugly part of disappointment, and that's going through depression. We start to go through depression. um People become withdrawn. You start isolating yourself. You you stop being social. You've been a social butterfly, an extrovert all your life, and then you stop liking people. I don't know how many times I keep having so many people say, "Well, I don't like people no more." You don't like people anymore. You're a social butterfly. You are someone who is an extrovert. You love socializing. And experiencing repeated disappointments has led you to a place where you don't want to be bothered with people. You don't want to deal with them anymore. You don't want to deal with them anymore. So when I think about it, disappointment kind of whispers to us these negative self thoughts that we kind of have. We're not enough, or nothing works out for me. You start telling yourself that, or maybe I don't deserve good things, or here's a good one: God has abandoned me. He forgot about me. Another ugly part is you start believing this. You start believing those lies, You begin to shrink. You start playing small, You stop trusting and you stop trying. You eventually get to a place where you just kind of give up. This is just my life. But I tell people, I tell them the truth because that's how I see it. You are enough. You are enough. Um, Delays are not denial, and God's timing isn't punishment. Sometimes, God's timing is just protecting you or preparing you for something else. Sometimes God closes doors because the room on the other side is too small for who you are becoming. And essentially, God is just saying, that wasn't your path. Keep walking. So I want you to start looking at the silver lining, the lesson, the bright side of what didn't happen that you wanted to happen. I want you to start looking at the bright side of that, looking at those silver linings. Moving into the good, okay? So the good starts to happen when we start to understand that acceptance doesn't necessarily mean we're giving up. It doesn't necessarily mean we're giving up. It doesn't mean that we are shrinking. It doesn't mean that we stop caring. It doesn't mean that we settle. It doesn't mean that we lose hope. It simply means that I release what I cannot control and I choose peace while I keep moving. That's what it simply means. Believe it or not, there is power in saying, there's power in your words. There is power in saying, this hurts me. There is power in saying, this didn't work. This didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, but I will not stay stuck. I will not allow it to define me. There are power. There is power in your words. Our words are power. There's a book that I wanted to introduce to you guys, and it's called put this to the side. I hope there's a better way that I can do these cue cards, you guys, but there's a book called The Power of the Spoken Word, and it's by Florence Scovel Shinn. I love her books. She has another one, Your Word is Your Wand. So she's a very, very good author, you guys. If I could find a way, I will try to put links into. I guess it would have to be attached to YouTube or something. I'm not sure, but I'm still figuring out this tech, you guys. But I will find a way to where I can put links to books that I recommend or worksheets for you. But she says, and this is the summary of the back. It says, "Our words have power to change our lives by paying more attention to how we speak and hence how we think. We can change our circumstances for the better. The power of the spoken word will help you make the positive changes that you've always wanted to make." So, this is her book. This is the power of spoken words. Okay. And again, as I said before, there's another book called Your Wand is Your Word that she has, and it will talk with you about how you can speak in a different light, reframing, if you will. You can speak to change how you attract positivity and attract positive vibrations, if you will. Okay. So, disappointment. So, next, we're going to talk about um, change, how to reframe and how to change how you speak about yourself. I want you to ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? Okay. The next time you experience a moment where, someone's disappointing you or you make a decision that didn't go as you hoped and you're experiencing disappointment, you're disappointed by it, ask yourself, What is this experience trying to teach me? What part of me needs healing? Or even, in the spiritual aspect, what might God be redirecting me? What might God be redirecting me? Because I feel like healing doesn't erase the memories; it just kind of lower the blow, so to speak, um, as we move through life. And um, oftentimes, that's just what happens. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys some practical tools, and again, if I can figure out how to go about attaching these links or these worksheets. Um, I'm going to do that, but I wanted to give you guys some practical tools to kind of take with each episode so that you can kind of look at practicing on your own. And I'm not going to say homework, but practicing on your own or just something that can kind of help you work on outside of what I've discussed today. Okay. Naming it. Okay. When you become disappointed in a moment, name it. I'm disappointed because naming it brings clarity. Clarity brings healing. I want you to name it, okay? I want you to feel it without staying in it too long. Remember, we talked about just long enough to honoring your heart. I want you to feel it. I want you to cry if you need to. I want you to process it. I want you to journal. Journal is a very good way for you to get it out if you don't want to talk with anyone about it. It's a good way to kind of get your emotions out. But journal. I want you to breathe through it. That's another good way, when you're experiencing something that causes you disappointment, just take some time, take a minute, take a step back and breathe. Calm yourself down. Change the narrative, calm yourself down. Pray. That's a good one. Pray, you know, praying to God, talking with Him, you know, having a conversation with God. Because when I think about it, God meets you where you are. You can say something like, Lord, this hurt me, help me understand, help me heal. Because He meets you where you are and not where you pretend to be. Another one, talk to someone, talk to a safe person about it. It's therapy. Therapy works, you guys. As I said in the first episode, it works. Talk to someone. Talk to someone that you trust. You feel safe with talking about it so that you can work through it, so that you can heal. I feel like pain grows in isolation. But when we heal, we look to connect with other people. Choose people that you feel like will listen, not people who will shame you. Okay. Also, change your mindset. Reframe your words, as I talked about that before. Change your mindset set instead of it didn't work out, I failed. Think about saying things like it didn't work out, I learned, I'm being redirected. Language shifts your mindset, and shifting your mindset in a positive direction is always healing. Okay. And here's a good one, you guys, that I'm going to spend a little bit more time on um, versus the others. And that is set your boundaries. You have to set your boundaries when it comes to people who consistently disappoint you. When it comes to when it comes to other people, you have to protect your peace. If we don't set boundaries, we find ourselves repeating the same disappointments with new situations and with new people. So you have to set your boundaries. I say all the time, setting your boundaries is not punishment. Setting your boundaries is preparation again, and it's protection. They protect your heart, your time, they protect your emotional energy. Setting boundaries is a good thing, especially when you always show up for other people and they don't show up for you. A boundary is just simply a line that defines what you will and what you will not allow. For example, if someone keeps disappointing you over and over again, and you ask them to do something, um, you ask them to do something, and they disappoint you because they're not showing up for you, and they say no. That's hard for me. It's you know when people say no very easily, don't skip a beat or sleep at night very well, and they will say no to you quickly, but I have a difficult time saying no. I kind of just wonder, like, wow, you could say no so easily and not feel any guilt or regret about saying no. So we need to start doing that for other people, being more assertive and meaning what we say. You say, I am not able to do it for you, but I know you will figure it out. I am not able to do it for you, but I know you will figure it out. You know, this acknowledges a pattern without making excuses for it. You're choosing self respect over overextending yourself. They didn't skip a beat, so why should you? You are no longer rescuing or overextending yourself at the expense of your own peace. You're no longer housing that inappropriate guilt. Um, I feel like also boundaries don't necessarily push people away, you know? They teach people how to treat you. When you've been disappointed, it's often because we've ignored the red flags. We've overextended ourselves. We said yes when we really wanted to say no. We put our worth in someone else's approval. Setting boundaries allow us to say, I will not abandon myself again. And if it shifts you from, I hope people treat me right, to I treat myself right and my boundaries support that, then so be it. So I know I'm talking about boundaries a little more, but most people who are overwhelmed or who are burned out have issues with boundaries. There are some common phrases that would also like to link for those of you who may have difficulty setting boundaries. Um, but these are common phrases that you could say when you're experiencing some type of emotion. Um, and these are common, like, boundary phrases that you could say. Let me see. Okay, got it. Okay. This is a time boundary, and you say when someone asks you, give your time or whatever, and want you to hurry up and make a commitment, you say, I need time to think before committing, and mean it. An emotional boundary, um, someone you're having a conversation with someone who is emotional and they want you to talk with them right now, you say, I can't hold the conversation today. It's heavy for me. Respect when you feel like you're being disrespected. You say, I'm willing to talk, but not if I'm being disrespected. Energy, I don't have the capacity for that right now. We have, I could do a whole episode on vampires. I call them vampires, bloodsuckers, that people who drain your energy. You have to set a boundary with people who drain your energy and you're not getting anything in return for them. Take, 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 take. Healing boundary. I care, but I need some distance while I heal. These are not rude. These are not rude at all. They are self honoring. You can expect resistance, you know, once you change things for people, um, and you do things a certain way all the time and then you change it up, people are used to you saying yes, yes, yes. But when you change things, you got to expect some resistance. You can expect resistance because most often people who benefited from you not having boundaries, they may not like it. They'll start to say things like, you've changed or you're being selfish. I'm being selfish because I'm not helping you in that moment. Okay. So, we got to set our boundaries, okay? Protect your peace by setting your boundaries. When I think about boundaries again, for those of you who may even have more difficult time setting boundaries, and it may feel uncomfortable for you setting those boundaries for a while, especially when it comes to setting them with people that you love and who are very close to you, for example, your children. You can feel a lot of guilt about setting the boundaries and um, saying no. But, you can tell yourself some affirmations to kind of help you work on that, to kind of help you improve that. You can say things like, I am allowed to protect my peace. I don't have to apologize for choosing myself. Boundaries are love for me and for others. If you are setting boundaries, and you're used to, you're someone who kind of fix everything for everybody else, and you set up those boundaries, it's good for the other party as well. It is very good for them. You are no longer enabling them, and you are allowing them to be who they're called to be. You are allowing them to grow and figure things out for themselves. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They allow they allow in what is safe and gently close what is harmful to you. And that's part of healing. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually preservation. Sometimes delay is actually development. And sometimes disappointment is God making room for something better aligned with your purpose. So I want you to always remember, no storm lasts forever, and you won't always feel the way that you do today. Healing doesn't erase pain, it just transforms the pain that lives in you. So before we close, I want to invite you to into reflection. I want you to ask yourself, what does disappointment stir up in you? What are you still carrying? What have I learned because of it? Where might my life be redirecting me? And if this resonates with you, or you know someone who has difficulty with disappointment and setting boundaries and, honoring their heart, and you want them to protect their peace and learn from it, like, share, and subscribe. Um, just to kind of summarize, journal about it, pray about it, talk with someone you trust, talk with someone you trust. And so, that being said, This is the end of episode 3. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for trusting me with your healing space. And I want to thank you for allowing me to walk this journey with you. I'm Doc G. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, protect your peace, honor your healing, and keep moving forward. In the meantime, as I always say, love you, be good to you, and expect great things for you because you deserve it. Until next time.
Place this voice within me, and I'm answering his call.